Ready to go? Okay, good evening and welcome to this evening's Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting. It's Tuesday, the 24th of February 2026. Please be aware the meeting's being live streamed to the Council's YouTube channel, and also for anyone watching, you will see lots of people using laptops and iPads. That's really because of our commitment to reducing paper and converting as much as possible to electronic device usage. I'm Councillor Milton, I'm the chair of the committee. I have alongside me Darren Knight, Deputy Chief Executive, and Josie Wainwright, our scrutiny officer. In addition, this evening we have lots of people joining us, so thank you very much to everyone who has joined. We have Zoe Court, Head of Neighbourhood Services, David Reeves, the owner of RPA, David Anderson, Green Space Manager, Graham Folks Skinner, Climate Change Team Leader, Richard Dobbs, Managing Director of Sherborne Recycling. And we also have portfolio holders this evening. We have Councillor Davison, Councillor Melrose and Councillor Williams. Actually, I'd better do the emergency procedure because I know we have people who've perhaps not been before, but there are no planned tests. If the alarm does sound, everyone present must leave by the designated exit route. If the preferred route is blocked, use the nearest signed alternative route. Don't use the lift, and then assemble at the designated point, which is the central reservation in Regent Grove, which is just over there in front of the police station. Members of the public and press should report to a member of the town hall staff who will be wearing yellow fluorescent jackets. Councillors and officers should report to the scrutiny officer. Please do not re-enter the building until the fire officer advises it is safe to do so. Also, just a reminder on the use of mics, don't put anything in front of them, and please try and speak into them rather than across them, or I don't think anyone will be speaking behind them, so that's good. Right, item 1 on the agenda, apologies and substitutes. This is a long list again. So Councillor Kennedy substituting for Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Gorman substituting for Councillor Harrison. Thank you. I know you substituted last week as well, so thank you very much for coming back again. Councillor Redford, welcome back, substituting for Councillor Day. And Councillor Barton has given his apologies. I know these aren't formal apologies, but I will just report Councillor Roberts, unfortunately, is unable to attend due to illness. So we wish him well, but I'm sure he sent a good team in his absence. Councillor Melrose, are you going to give me some helpful tips on how to run the meeting?
Absolutely not. Just report Councillor Knight is on his way. He's stuck in traffic.
Thank you very much. That's useful to know. Otherwise, I think we're okay. Right. Declarations of interest. Do members have anything to declare an interest on the agenda? Right, okay, we'll take that as a no. And I now have 2 sets of minutes to confirm. The first is to confirm the minutes of the Overview and Scrutiny meeting on the 3rd of February 2026. I'm happy to propose that from the chair. Do I have Councillor Luckhurst? Thank you for seconding. All those in favour? Great, that's everyone. And the second one is to confirm the minutes of the Budget Review Group meeting, which was held on the 17th of December 2025 and the 4th of February 2026. I will propose those from the chair. Do I have a seconder for those? Councillor Luckhurst again, thank you. All those in favour? I think that's everyone. Great, that is everyone. Thank you. Right, a little bit of business done. Right, next item is our work programme. So just looking at, so we've got quite a lot this evening, which is good. We've got 4 pretty substantial items. Looking at the work programme ahead to the next Overview and Scrutiny, which is on the, I think, 24th of March from memory. We already have 4 things on the agenda, and it's a cabinet cycle one. So what I've agreed is that the summary of roles, responsibilities and performance of the Community Safety Partnership is going to be deferred until April. And also in terms of the change programme, we will take that as a briefing note rather than a formal paper. And that's really for 2 reasons. One is obviously with the with the way the budget was set out, the change programme has changed slightly. But also, I think from the briefing note, you'll see actually some really strong performance there as well. So I think it's good to keep members updated on that, but we may want to just make consider as a committee how we want to be scrutinising that in future. Also, just a couple of other items. Welcome, Councillor Whiteman and Councillor Knight. That's all right. The joys of Leamington traffic at the moment. So, also reflecting on the urgent ONS meeting that we had last week, I would like to again thank members for their swift turnaround in that meeting and providing such good feedback and quality debate. I'm proposing that actually we invite the Strategic Director to Overview and Scrutiny in December to give us an update with regards to the lessons learned from the Kenilworth School sites. I'm sure Councillor Melrose will be looking forward to joining him for that. I'd also like to add a project management strategy and progress update to the work programme in September 2026, so this year, and that's really just sort of build on some of the discussions that we've been having, both in terms of the last overview and scrutiny where we discussed the project capability and capacity, and then also some of the other changes that are coming in as a result. I've also, for those of you who are at the budget review group, Councillor Knight was there, weren't you, at the budget review group? I can't remember, I'm losing track of who else was there. You will have enjoyed a long discussion about garages on the HRA. The good news is we're going to have a discussion about garages in the general fund at some point in the future. So one of the things that came out of full council last week was actually there are a set of garages or a number of garages that actually fall within the general fund rather than the HRA. So it's we've asked for a report, background at this stage and see whether we've got some of the same challenges that we do with the HRA. But that will fall to us rather than going into housing scrutiny. Are there any further amendments or suggestions from members for items they'd like to see on the work programme? Of course you can, Councillor Dray.
It's just about the outside bodies thing, Phil. The annual feedback on the outside bodies reports. I've had to do one, and I was just wondering why it was so early that we were asked to put it in, because I didn't have all the information available to finish it. I've done what I can, but I was asked in January, and in previous years we weren't asked till March, and it was a lot easier because you had all the information on your disposal. And I just think if I could have my report back, I could finish it off. I just wondered why it was so early.
Okay, so the question is about, do we... yeah, okay, Councillor Davison, I may have a bit of intel on it, but
I'd just say I have the same thought, but at the bottom it says you've got until the 1st of April, so
yeah,
I'm aiming for that date.
They kept asking me to send it in, and I thought, why? I can do half a report, and I did say that I didn't have all the information to give you. So that's all that I've done.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dray. So Josie will feed back to committee services on that. I think that's an interesting dynamic. If we've sent it out in January, told people they can have to the 1st of April, but we're chasing people. I appreciate the enthusiasm. That's always good. But yeah, the reminders will be helpful. Okay, so in terms of, I'll just propose all those changes that we've gone through. 17th, oh gosh, okay, 17th of March, St Patrick's Day. So I'll propose those amendments to the work programme. Can I have someone to second that? Councillor Kohler, Councillor Luckhurst, what was going on? And then all those in favour? Great, thank you very much. Right, okay, so we are now on to the main items of the agenda. And we're starting off this evening with item 6 on the agenda, which is the annual review of Sherborne Recycling. I'd like to welcome back Richard Dobbs, the Managing Director of Sherborne Recycling. And I think, Mr. Knight, you're representing officers, representing the council in this item, or I just want to be clear on the hats.
Yeah, so I will, if I comment, it will be as the council's appointed director to the board.
Great, thank you. So we're just getting everyone clear on what roles people are playing. So welcome, Mr. Dobbs. Could you just start by just giving us a summary of performance over the last year and of the report that's been submitted to scrutiny for members, and then I will hand over to members for any questions.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully you've all had time and opportunity to read the report that we've sent round, so I won't dwell too long on what's in it. But I think we've had a good 12 months since I last saw you all. Had some challenging times, as is always the case when you're establishing a new business, but I think we've made some real progress in the last 12 months. We've achieved almost all of the targets we've set for ourselves, and I think, and Darren will tell me differently if it's the case, but I think the board's very happy with the direction and the performance that the company's achieving, and we're going from strength to strength. A couple of things I wanted to pick out were, of particular note. We've achieved our ISO accreditation in a number of key areas, which was a task we set for ourselves, and we're very happy that we've been able to achieve that. We've won a number of awards, and again, I think that just reflects what we've been doing over the last, well, it's more than 12 months since we started in 2018 as a project, and now as a facility that's delivering for the 1.5 million householders that it serves. But it's clearly making waves, which is in a positive sense, which is always good to see. Some challenges that we've experienced, and I mentioned those in the report. An unanticipated shutdown that we managed to negotiate successfully, and the continuing issues we have with contamination, particularly around Christmas time, particularly with textiles, and currently we're experiencing some issues with large volumes of wet material, which you won't be surprised about, given the fact that it hasn't stopped raining since I was in sixth form, it feels like, but certainly for a considerable amount of time. But we still get issues with items like textiles and that sort of thing. I mean, I'm pleased to say that Warwick's performance is excellent in terms of the amount of contamination and non-target items that are produced, but there's still a way to go with all our partners, and I know that Zoe and her team are continuing to work with us on getting even your small numbers down to even lower levels. But there's work to be done, particularly around communications with residents, as has always been a challenge in the world of recycling. Moving on to finance, I'm particularly pleased that we've been making our loan repayments on time and in full, and that we are in a healthy financial position. That continues. We've got a positive balance sheet, and again, for a company of our age and given the borrowing structure we've got, that's no mean feat. And we continue to bring in material in excess of the contracts that we've won so far, and we're continuing to bid for new contracts with a couple under consideration that we tendered for in the last few weeks that we're waiting on the outcome of over the next few weeks. A brief nod to health and safety and risk management. Darren Knight sits on our risk management committee, and that's done an enormous amount of work over the last 12 months. I think we made some real progress in terms of moving from that construction phase I spoke about the last time I was here into that operational phase, and making sure that those strategic and operational risks are well covered, and that's an excellent piece of work that continues. From a health and safety perspective, members may be aware, but waste management is the second most dangerous industry to be in outside of construction. So we went through constructing a waste management facility into running one, so we covered all the bases in terms of how not to approach having a lack of sleepless nights if you're running these sorts of things. But I'm pleased to say that our health and safety performance remains strong, as I hope you can see from the information we've supplied at section 4.1 in the report. Just a couple of things to go on to mention. I'll talk about governance. You will, I'm sure, be aware last time we spoke the fact that we were looking at, as we've moved from a new facility that had only just been built, commissioned, into a fully operational facility with a bit of a track record behind it, that actually it was time to look at the governance structure of Sherborne and to look at see whether some independent thinking and some external expertise could be brought onto the board. I'm pleased to say that we've been through that process of looking at how governance could be improved, put a number of measures in place already, and we are looking at the moment to appoint an independent chair and possibly some non-executive directors to complement and enhance the skills and experience on our boards. That process is running in line with some considerations that you're making along with the other 7 partner councils around the shareholder agreement, but I think that's going through the various committees and cabinets and councils over the next few weeks, and should all be done and dusted by the end of March, at which point we hope to make an appointment to the chair position. And the only other thing to talk about, I think, at this stage is what we're planning to do over the next 12 months. So we're still bidding for contracts, as I said. There's a fair amount of work to do there. We've got to bed in our new governance structure. We're looking at some changes in terms of our capacity so that we can improve our throughput and our effective capacity so that we can bring in more waste. And we're looking to reinforce those financial positions that I spoke about earlier and make sure that our bottom line continues to get healthier as the next 12 months goes on. That's a very, very quick canter through the report and the performance. Obviously, Chair, I'm more than happy to take questions.
Great, thank you, Mr. Dobbs. So we've got Councillor Kennedy and Councillor Knight. Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for that report. It seems that you're making excellent progress right across everything that you do. I have a couple of questions, really. They're mainly focused on communications. I represent a ward in Kenilworth, and in Kenilworth there's a lot of enthusiasm for recycling, and we've had several groups wanting to visit the facility and have been really impressed. First of all, you mentioned this problematic materials and so on, paragraph 2.5, and I'm wondering what can be done in terms of communication with residents to ensure that we have fewer problematic materials coming through. And secondly, in paragraph 3.5, you report on the excellent market prices for the recyclate going out. I think there's a lack of understanding, and I certainly don't know what happens to the materials that come out. And it would be interesting, I think, for residents to have a sort of story of a journey, what happens to the milk container that they recycle and what it eventually gets sold on to and what it gets repurposed for through the recycling process, because there's still a concern that people see of materials being dumped on beaches in Malaysia or Turkey or something like that. And if we can have real confidence that things are being recycled, that would be great benefit to residents. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair. I mean, I'll take the second one first, if I may. One of the red lines that was established when Sherborne was first developed as a concept and then moved into its operational phase was the need to address exactly that issue, you know, that an awful lot of recycling is sold abroad, and you're starting to use the term recycling quite loosely depending on how far abroad that waste eventually goes. And it loses value and it adds carbon miles and it does any number of things that you're objectively trying not to do when you're saying to residents, if you put that material in your bin, we will recycle it for you. So one of the reasons why we focus so much on quality, and I spoke about quality last time and I'll inevitably speak about it again today, Sherborne is set up and it uses its technology and its AI and its robotics and that sort of thing largely to make sure that we have that extra push at the end of the process to make sure that the material that goes out of the door at Sherborne is of the highest possible quality it can be. So it's not contaminated with other materials. So if we say we're sending out natural PEHD, largely your milk bottles that you were talking about, we know that we can go to a dozen UK-based reprocessors and say, if you get your material off us, it will be 98% PEHD natural. Nobody else is achieving that. Nobody else is getting anywhere close. That means we get better value for it. You as a council get a better rebate as a result of that. So the money that we make from selling that material goes straight back to the councils, the partner councils that supplied it. It means that the waste miles that we travel and the carbon footprint we have is significantly reduced because we know that it's going to go to a facility that's within the UK. And that is the same of every single material that we produce. So whether it's the three different types of glass that we produce, whether it's the three different types of fibre that we produce, fibre being paper and card, whether it's plastics, whether it's metals, they are all going within the UK. We've had a look to see whether if we need, because the plastics market has suffered a series of shocks, we've looked at the European market for our recyclables to see whether, if we need to, we can deliver to Europe. We found one or two outlets that meet our due diligence tests, and that means that it doesn't then go on to end up in Turkey or Indonesia or wherever. But we are still able to secure outlets in the UK at a higher price than we got even if we went to the Netherlands or Belgium or anywhere else. So it's an absolute advantage to have the quality of material that we produce because it allows us access to those materials, it gives us the security of the market, and it invests that money back into the UK. You know, it's not going elsewhere, which is an absolute positive to your householders, it's a positive to the business, and it's a positive to the reprocessors that we work with. So all of those things, you know, work to everyone's advantage. And in terms of what happens to my waste when I put it in your bin, because of the purity we achieve, it is all going back into being made into new product. And in fact, when we deal with PET, which is a type of plastic, the quality we are able to achieve is so high that we are in the process of talking to companies about turning it straight back into food grade plastic, which is not unusual, it's unheard of from coming out of a materials recycling facility. So we are able to produce new milk bottles, produce new glass bottles, produce paper and card. So if you put an order in on an online retailer, I won't say which one, if that box arrives on your doorstep, take the contents out, put that cardboard box into your bin. If we emptied it the next day, there's a good chance that that same cardboard could be in a cardboard box within 2 or 3 weeks, arriving back on your doorstep with another item inside it, because that is how we close the loop through using the recycling outlets that we've got. So all of the materials that we process all go to UK markets, all have low carbon miles as a result. In terms of the communication, which I think was your first question, and what we do an awful lot of work with all of the partner councils, and Warwick is certainly no exception, about a number of different messages, but to try and make those messages as clear and as consistent as we can. The issues that we have is that an awful lot of people see recycling as being one homogeneous thing. If it's vaguely recyclable, I'll stick it in the bin that's marked recyclable and recyclables, and that will do. So we get textiles and we get hard plastics, lawnmower coverings. We get things that are made of metal, but they're saucepans or they're brake discs or they're lengths of pipe that rip holes in conveyor belts. So that there are people who are trying to do the right thing, but they're not aware of the issues that putting the wrong item causes. And of course, our real worry is that things like disposable vapes or electrical equipment with lithium-ion batteries in them get into the waste stream, and those cause fires. So it may be made of metal and plastic, but people need to be careful about what they put and where they put it. And the communication is all about saying to people that there's a right place for the right stuff. For the most part, if it wrapped something, if you read it, or if it was a container for something, put it in your recycling bin and we can deal with that. Almost anything else probably needs to go somewhere else, if it's textiles or if it's garden waste, or we get things like electrical cables that wrap themselves around pulleys and motors. Those things were never designed to be recycled through the curbside scheme. So it's about pushing positive messages about what can go in the bin, and it's also about pushing a little bit of these are the problems that are caused if you put the wrong things in the bin. And we use a combination of those two things, I think, to try and get that message across. But we clearly need to do a little bit more in terms of getting the wrong stuff out of that bin and into the right place. Because because it does cause us problems. About a third of our downtime is still caused by material coming through that we can't cope with. You know, it's too big, it's too, but we can't deal with planks of wood that are 6 foot long. We can't deal with duvets. We can't deal with paddling pools. At Christmas, we can't deal with fairy lights. You know, and despite pushing those messages out, you know, we still get the wrong things coming through. Not as bad in Warwick as in other places, but, you know, if you get your 10% or whatever it is down to 5%, then that's better for everybody. So that's what we're working on as the next step.
Great, thank you. Councillor Kennedy, did you have a follow-up?
No, that's really interesting to know. Just hoping that some of that can come out to residents and members of the public. And I don't know whether you've got ideas about how to do that. I imagine, I don't know, TikTok sessions. Maybe Zoe's got something to say about that. Yeah.
Yeah, just to follow on what Richard was just saying, we have been focusing really heavily in our team on the food waste collections because of the change in legislation with simpler recycling. The team have been working on that full time, rolling out food waste collections to all of our communal properties. We anticipate that will sort of complete spring, summer, and we are doing a comms plan for recycling. We do look at, when we get the data from Sherborne, we can pinpoint, when it's sampling, we can pinpoint where it's come from, the contamination. And we do have to talk to the crews and the residents because we do collect textiles as part of our curbside collection, but not in the wheeled bin. And it's about making those messages clearer. And the same with the cables. We collect those as part of the small wee items, but it's about making the message clear. So the comms plan for the year is drawn up. It's just all of our resources are on the food waste at the moment. But we have really, really good meetings with Sherborne and their partner, Anthony. I'm not sure what his job role is now, but
It changes every week.
Just change every week, doesn't it? But we are regularly working with our media team, and Anthony will share certain assets for messages that he wants us to put out. I think there was one just before Christmas about contamination and examples of contamination. If in doubt, don't put it in the blue lidded bin. Hope that helps.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, that was really helpful. Councillor Knight, I'll come to you now.
Thank you, Chair. My question is around the health and safety. I can see the near miss is very high, 339 near miss. Because your report says that 6 months. That is very high. What mechanism you put in place to reduce your near miss? And yeah, because the near miss is the worst one to me. Thank you.
So actually we're doing the opposite. We like near misses. We like near miss reporting, and the reason we like near miss reporting is because our message to all of our operating staff, whether they're agency or whether they work directly for us, is anything you identify that has the potential to turn into a hazard is something we want to know about before that hazard occurs. So we actively say, in fact, I don't think this is anywhere near high enough. I want to see that doubled, and we've sent that message out to our teams. You know, I want every single thing, whether it's waste that's been left out on a walkway or whether it's a cover that's not quite been properly replaced, or whether it's, you know, a vehicle that's moving beyond the 5 mile an hour limit, or whatever it is, somebody's wearing their high-vis jacket the wrong way around. I don't care, you know, not wearing your gloves in the right area. Every single one of those incidents is something that our health and safety team want to know about. Because the next time we hear about it, it might be something a little bit more significant than that. So near misses, although it looks like, oh crikey, you've got an awful lot of things going wrong, it's actually an awful lot of things that are largely sort of day-to-day in nature, but actually are not completely 100% in line with the safe working practices that we are drilling into our staff day in and day out. So it looks as if, crikey, you're on the verge of, you know, of calamity because you're having all these near misses, but it's the terminology is a little bit misleading. Near misses aren't something where somebody suddenly stopped and, oh, crikey, I'm glad I didn't take another step forward because I'd be in trouble. It's about saying, you know, why is that cable not been clipped back into its proper position? Why is, you know, even things that, you know, on our shadow boards, you know, why is there an item of equipment that's not been replaced? You know, it's about identifying those sorts of things and making sure that we can then take the next step to ensure that they're addressed, rather than there's something that nearly happened there that we need to be dealing with. So I hope that's given you some reassurance.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Can I just ask one or two follow-ups on that, please, Mr. Dobbs? I think, because I understand the principle of, actually it's about creating culture, isn't it, and getting people aware. Do I understand from your answer that actually most of those near-miss incidents are actually they're internal things within your control rather than externally caused things, you know, lithium batteries coming in, that sort of thing?
Yeah, no, absolutely right. I mean, we have categories of near misses as well. So we have green, amber and red, and as the traffic light system suggests, the green ones are fairly mild, you know, some things that need to be dealt with in the normal course of events. Amber, slightly more urgency about them. We'd expect by the end of the week them to be rectified. Red ones obviously need dealing with within 24 hours at the latest. And that is a way of showing that your internal controls are looking at exactly where those hazards are likely to arise from what's happening on a day-to-day basis and trying to address those. So you're absolutely right. It's about culture. It's about making sure that everybody realises that health and safety is their issue. You know, you don't just leave it for somebody else. I'd rather 16 different members of staff reported exactly the same thing than nobody did. You know, but even if it's about, you know, a skip being parked, you know, half a metre outside of the yellow lines that say where it should be sitting, you look around and you think, well, you're being a bit pernickety, but no, you're not, because you'd expect it to be within the safe working area, and anything that's outside of that needs addressing, and that would be something that we'd say that needs dealing with, you know, quickly. So it's about that culture. It's about those internal controls. There will be occasions where it's an external driver on site, for example, you know, may not have turned their engine off, maybe whatever it is. You know, we're fussy about people eating on site. Nobody consumes food on site outside of the eating areas, and there's various reasons for that. It's a waste site. It's, you know, it's not the thing you should be doing. So even if somebody's sitting in their cab on the weighbridge, you know, finishing off the last of a Yorkie bar, it would still be something that we'd report. It would still be something that we'd report to, you know, whichever the driver was concerned, and we put them on notice that we wanted to make sure that that individual was spoken to and that issue was rectified. So most of them are internal, but there are a number of external communications as well arising from it.
Great, thank you. And where's that, how does, I don't know if you're here, if you're at this point yet, but what you've outlined sounds like quite a reactive approach. How does that then translate into a more proactive lessons learned, stopping these things happening? Because there is almost, I appreciate there's a bit of a paradox here, isn't there? That actually you want lots of reports, but actually you want nothing going wrong, really.
So I think that, yeah, there are two elements there, aren't there? The first is you make sure that your training programs are comprehensive enough and delivered in such a way that everybody is aware of exactly what risk means, what hazards are, what their health and safety responsibilities are. So there's an enormous amount of training that's done sort of both, you know, formally, informally, toolbox talks, mandatory training, you know, different levels of training depending on your responsibilities, action-specific training and all those sorts of things that, you know, we make sure that people who are working at height have got the appropriate training, people using personal protective equipment have got the appropriate training, all those sorts of things. But you also need to make sure that, you know, and sort of near misses sort of test you on that. You know, we've told you as a team what we expect, what right looks like, what wrong looks like. You identify everything that doesn't look quite right to you and you report it to us. So you need to be trained to be able to appreciate those things. But equally, you stop reporting things if nothing happens about it. So a lot of what we do is follow-up training to address issues that have been raised. You said we did culture. So when you come to us and say, we've noticed that this issue has arisen, we want to be able to go back to them and say either, actually, you're right, but it's not a problem for this reason, or actually, we are doing something about it. So you will notice that a week on Tuesday, we're going to come in and put some guards around that piece of piping that you've identified, or we're going to do, we're going to repaint the lines that you've noticed have been rubbed out by the movement of the loading shovels, or whatever it is. It's about saying, it's really important you've reported that to us, we're taking action, and we're going to communicate back to you the action that we've taken so that you do it again next time. You don't have this culture of, well, we keep telling them things and nothing happens. It's got to be a 360 approach where, you know, you encourage the communication and you feed back the responses to those lessons learned.
Great, thank you. Councillor Knight, did you want to come back on this point? Because then I've got Councillor Redford. So, Councillor Knight, come back in on this one, then we'll.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. You mentioned you got a traffic light system. How many red near miss you have?
Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you. It's significantly the lowest of the three categories. So the vast majority of our near misses are categorised as green. A few are categorised as amber, a handful are categorised on red on a weekly basis. And they're basically down to severity. So, you know, a near miss, for example, may be a piece of guarding that's not been properly replaced. Now, in and of itself, you can't get to it, you wouldn't be able to injure yourself, but it is something that is there for a reason, and it's to protect the health and safety of the operatives. So I would expect that to be repaired immediately. Something like, you know, a line being rubbed out, you can still see it, but it needs repainting, obviously, is the sort of green, you know, the green sort of near miss. Far more of those than of the red nature.
Thank you. Councillor Redford, come to you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for the report. It's very informative and quite interesting. But I go to 3.4, where you talk about loss of tonnage. And whilst you say you are close to making up for work to win target by the end of the year, you've done that by short-term commercial arrangements. Now, how short is short-term? And if, as you imply here, some of the tonnage loss is because of government reorganisation, we are actually going through, or will be, reorganisation at some time. We don't know how long it's going to last or what the effects of it all is going to be. So, you know, if small, I'm assuming these were small alterations, you know, what effect could that have? Because that then affects our rebate. And are these short-term commercial arrangements something that can be easily put back into place? Or are you going to continue? Sorry, that's very long, isn't it? But
But you're absolutely right. I mean, our business plan sets out us bidding for local authority tonnage from other councils. So obviously the 8 partner councils are supplying us with their waste under the 25-year term of the waste supply agreement. That's all fine and dandy, but there is sufficient capacity within the plant to take a considerable amount of waste from other sources, and our preferred source is other local authorities. We've already got a couple of contracts in place. We've bid for 1 or 2, but we were expecting significantly more tender opportunities to come forward over the last 12 months. And there are 2 reasons we think why those opportunities haven't come forward. One is local government reorganisation. So I think an awful lot of councils have simply decided to press pause on their procurement because they are uncertain about what's going to happen over the next 12 to 18 months, and we're sort of waiting to see before they went ahead. Another one Zoe's already referred to is simpler recycling. There's an awful lot of focus on getting food waste collections right at the moment, and therefore I think there's been a delay in going out to the market, and what they've done is they've extended their current arrangements for, say, 12 months while they've got over the food waste hump. What that means is actually those contracts we thought would be coming to market over the last 12 months are now starting to appear. And we've got a number of bids in at the moment. So it's more been a delay in terms of those opportunities coming forward rather than being cancelled altogether. So that's encouraging. So we've got opportunities going forward. In terms of the short term, this is what we call spot tonnage. So what tends to happen is that other MRFs have shutdowns, they have potentially won contracts which they need to clear out some of their waste before they can achieve new capacity to take on new contracts, and they speak to other suppliers in the industry and say, will you take our waste for us at a price? And it's those sorts of opportunities that we're taking advantage of. Now, those can run for a couple of weeks to 12 months, depending on what they need and what we want. And what we do as a commercial organisation is we pick and choose what suits us and them from those opportunities that come forward. Our aim is to move more into long-term stable contracts with other local authorities, but in the meantime we continue to talk to any number of MRFs up and down the country and work with them to use the opportunities that they present themselves to us to fill the gaps in our order book, if you like. So that's how that works. we're increasingly moving into longer term contracts as we move forward. But spot has always got an advantage to us because it means that we can take commercial opportunities as and when they arise by playing the market, so to speak. Does that answer your question?
So, are you confident that you can keep the tonnage up, even if there is reform of local authorities in a big way, which, well, is uncertain, I know. But
Yeah, so absolutely I'm confident. In fact, the number of opportunities coming to market have increased that confidence over the last few months. I think local government, I mean, the waste will still arise. So whoever is ultimately responsible for controlling that waste and for letting those contracts, they will still need to deal with the waste from the residents of wherever it is. You know, from Cornwall up to Northumberland, those waste contracts will still need to be, well, they'll still need to be let. They'll still need to be processed by MRFs. That isn't going to change. I think what has happened is that the uncertainty that local government reform has created has meant that a number of local authorities have been perhaps overly cautious when they've been going out to tender in the last 12 months. They're starting to become a little bit more, I don't know if they're confident about the outcome of local government reform. I would be absolutely astonished if they're confident about that. But they are confident that actually they can go ahead and let these contracts and it won't be to the detriment of either themselves or their residents. So I think we're starting to see that happening, and that gives me confidence that that waste and those opportunities will be there over the next 12 to 18 months going forward.
Great, thank you, Councillor Redford. Right, I've got Councillor Kohler and Councillor Dray. Then I'm going to planning to wrap up. I think Mr. Knight wants to say anything. I'm just keeping an eye on time, but if anyone does have anything massively urgent they want to fire in, I'll consider taking it as well. But Councillor Kohler, I'll come to you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much for the report. It seems a good news story. It's good. You talked a bit about capacity. Could you just give me a rough idea in terms of what capacity you're currently operating at? And you said that you're trying to look at ways to increase the capacity. What kind of percentage uplift are you seeking?
So at the moment we take about this year in total we will have taken about 150,000 tonnes. We take about 135,000 tonnes of contracted waste, just under that, and the rest is that sort of spot tonnage we were talking about earlier. The planning and permitted capacity of the plant is 250,000 tonnes a year. So, you know, another 100,000 tonnes a year potentially on top of that. I mean, we'd be pushing it if we were at 250,000 tonnes a year. But certainly there's no reason why we shouldn't be looking to push beyond the 175 that we were originally permitted for, up towards the 200,000 and beyond over the next 2 to 3 years. I mean, the current business plan is 3 years. We're just going into the second year of that. By the end of this 3-year cycle, I'd like to see us pushing hard on getting more capacity in terms of getting more waste through the plant from other sources.
Thank you. That's all sounds good. In terms of, you mentioned the Warwick district, a percentage of our contamination was at the lower end. Do you publish any stats by council in terms of, do we create some friendly competition between neighbouring areas, perhaps?
We don't publish any stats, Councillor. I've got them in my mind, and unless you want to move into closed session, I'm not going to share them here. But yeah, I think Zoe was referring to it earlier. They're useful tools because actually Warwick is not Warwick. Warwick as a district obviously is made up of any number of areas with different waste rounds that have different contamination rates on them, and actually drilling down into that data and getting a better understanding of actually what sort of material is coming from where is really quite helpful. It's helpful to us. It's helpful, I think, to our colleagues at Warwick District Council. It's also helpful to the other partners because we can look to see what works and what doesn't work. So one of the things we did in terms of rolling out flexibles communications, you know, you're aware that you can recycle plastic bags and flexible plastics. We used a number of different communication strategies as we rolled it out area by area, and we got quite a lot of useful feedback about what works and what doesn't. And also, you know that demographics are similar in some areas and different in others. Now, let's be fair, what works in the centre of Coventry is not necessarily going to work in, you know, Covington or Solihull. So, it does help you tailor that approach, both in terms of performance, but also in terms of communication. So it is useful.
Thank you very much.
Right, thank you, Councillor Kohler. Councillor Dray.
I was just interested in 5.2, 5.3 about recruitment for the chair and non-executive director. I was just wondering how that was going on. I know it's not planned until the 1st of April, but I was just wondering if you've started recruiting for that.
So yeah, absolutely. We have started the process of looking for an independent chair. We're using a third-party consultancy called Campbell to do that on our behalf. And there've been an awful lot of interest in it, which is encouraging, and we are just about getting to the long listing stage at the moment. So we're on track to appoint by the end of March, ready for them to start in April. So that's very encouraging. We've had a number of strong candidates come forward. In terms of the non-executive director, the ability is there within the shareholder agreement changes that are being proposed to allow us to do that in the future. But it very much is a stage 2 of this governance process. The first thing is to get the new independent chair in, get the board used to the new chairing arrangement, speak to the shareholders and the other stakeholders and get that established, and then use the experience and expertise of that new chair to see if there are any gaps or areas where we could perhaps improve in terms of governance or our expertise that sits on the board, and perhaps look for non-executive directors to provide that experience in the future. It may be that we have the skills we need. It may be there are certain areas, there's certain opportunities come forward, where we could use a bit of extra expertise around that board table. But that will happen in the fullness of time.
That's all right. 6.1, bringing in spot tonnage from a number of sources, as well as growing its consultancy business, expanding its living lab. I was just wondering what your sources were, and what did you mean by the living lab?
So the spot tonnage is what we were talking about earlier. It's those opportunities to take waste from other material recycling facilities on a very short-term to medium-term basis. We're already having a number of conversations around that, and that's encouraging. It also gives you a little bit of resilience if you can have reciprocal arrangements with other providers in terms of where you might have outlets for their waste and also your own. So that's work that we're continuing to develop. The living lab is, because of the high-tech nature of the facility and the way that we learn an awful lot about the nature of the material that comes through the plant using the AI, the robotics and the optical sorting technology that we've got. We are working with any number of manufacturers, packaging producers, retailers, wholesalers, that sort of thing. I won't name any names here, but we are working with an awful lot of household names as they look to see what effect, for example, lightweighting has on their packaging. So, a glass bottle that may have weighed whatever, 120 grams, can they get it down to 90 grams? Is it still recyclable? Does it still, they'll test whether it does the things that they need it to do. We're the people who say, actually, can it still be recycled in the way that it was recycled before? Does degrading plastics to an extent mean that they're no longer recyclable? Can our technology pick it up? Does it cause problems further down the waste stream? So it's about working with manufacturers to look at, actually, are there things that they need to bear in mind when they're making these changes that we can help them with? And that's consultancy work that we do, and it's an expanding part of our business.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Dobbs. I'm going to, Mr. Knight, did you want to come in at the end?
So, so I'm your appointed director to the board. So I'm the shareholder representative on the board and currently vice chair. Just a few bits from me, really. As you members know, I don't like to be optimistic because I generally tempt fate. So, but I have to say, I think we've got within Sherborne, we've built a good management team in place. I think the work around the risk committee and also the engagement with the insurers around risk has been really good to see that progress. I think that's a really strong area where I think Sherborne's done some really, really good work. I think we've I think the opportunity around the independent chair will bring that more private sector experience into the board environment as well, which I think would be good for this sort of future commercial opportunities Richard's is highlighted. And I think there's been some really good awards, that national recognition for the company as well. So I think at the moment we're cautiously optimistic in terms of the future, and the Living Lab is one of the commercial offshoots of the company where I think we've got more opportunity to grow that and develop that as well, and hence thinking about the skills we need around the board. Health and safety, really important part of and I'm really glad members have picked that up. That's really important for the board, and and you'll hopefully hear being convinced with the commitment from the company around health and safety. So I think we've got good reason to be optimistic, but I always like to be cautious. So I'll just finish on that note. Thank you.
Cautious optimism. Thank you, Mr. Knight. So thank you, Mr. Dobbs, for coming this evening and helping members with their questions. This report is basically for us to note only, but I think we should record our thanks to Mr. Dobbs and actually the team at Sherborne Recycling. The sessions we've had over the years on this haven't always been quite as positive, should we say. But I think this has felt like one where actually feels like the facility is hitting its stride. We've got the right team in place. We've had some good work done on the governance around that as well. So I think on behalf of members, am I happy to express that we're feeling quite confident about this, cautiously optimistic, as Mr. Knight would say. So thank you, Mr. Dobbs. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the evening, but I won't be offended if you... Oh, don't worry, we've got some corkers coming. Thank you very much. Right, okay, thank you, members. That was a good discussion and really, really good questions. Next item is item 7, the replacement paddling pools project update. I'm trying to get most of these things through in about 30 minutes if I can. We did run long on that one, but I'm just keeping an eye on time so we don't run late into the night, because I know some of this stuff is, some of the stuff is interesting as well as important, so it will provoke lots of questions. So we have Zoe Court, Head of Neighbourhood Services, David Anderson, Green Space Manager, and then we have David Reeves as well from RPA. So welcome, Mr. Reeves. Zoe, could I hand over to you to introduce the report, please, and then we'll go to members for questions.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Chair. Hopefully you've all had the opportunity to read this briefing note. It is intended to be a status update for you all to try and provide assurance of the project, because it is still live. The intention is to come back to ONS later in the year when the project is concluded and both of the paddling pools are open. But I'd like to thank David Reeves for attending with us. He is referenced throughout the report as the independent consultant. There has been a couple of people from RPA supporting us on this project, so happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you, Zoe, and just thank you, Senior Councillor Luckhurst. We will just be careful if we feel that we're straying into territory where we may have to go into confidential session, and I'll think about how we manage that around. We may break and then come back to something, but Councillor Luckhurst will come to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, first of all, it's great that councils to keep the pool open. I see Kidderminster have recently closed a similar pool. I suppose one thing we all want to know is any timescale that we might be looking at for getting it open. I guess my second question might be, do we need to do anything differently going forward, or are the processes generally okay and we just need to not be as unlucky?
I think I'll let David answer the improvements for the future, but I think the thing that the public are interested in is, when is the paddling pool open? When will they open? As it says in the report, we will be doing a comms plan. We will be keeping residents and friends of groups updated, and obviously all of the councillors. We are, as keen as you all are to open them as early as we can, but we've got to get it right. Generally, we open the paddling pools at the last weekend in May. the last weekend in May, but at the moment we can't give a guarantee on the date, but we will communicate with everybody on that. And the second part of your question, I'm going to hand over to David Rees, if that's all right.
Hi. So just in terms of, I think your question was, is what things need to change, or do we need to change things to do things better in the future? I guess the kind of underlying theme of the work that we've been doing with the Warwick team to date on the paddling pools project is that certain aspects of project setup, project planning, and kind of structure around governance and appointments and contracts of external contractors and consultants could have been better. So we've been working with the Warwick team to kind of advise them on how they can do that better in the future.
Right, thank you. And I think that was a good, interesting question, and I think the answer there actually chimes with the themes from a couple of things that we've been considering as a scrutiny committee. So I'm thinking back to our report on project capability and capacity. It's a reference into the pump rooms as well, and that need for actually early engagement of the right resource. So I think that's a theme we'll probably be coming back to at some point. So Councillor Kohler, I'll come to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the report. Can I ask, do we know what the financial impact to the council is going to be yet?
I'll try and answer that for you. I guess the straightforward answer to that is no. There isn't actually a firm understanding yet of the scale of the rectification works at one of the sites, which is Victoria Park. Until that's properly understood, it's difficult to put defined figures on exactly what will be involved. However, at the moment, we're working on the basis that in terms of actually paying for the rectification works that are going to be done, that isn't a cost that's going to fall to the council, but that is subject to closing out those issues with the relevant parties.
Thank you. I don't want to go into more detail, to go into private session, but would just like to understand. So the report makes clear that there were 2 contracted parties originally, and now you've been brought in as a technical expert to help us get to the bottom of what's gone wrong. Are either of those contracted parties going to bear any of the financial burden of repair, or do we not know yet?
So the way the contract has been set up indicates that there's a strong chance that the defects at both sites, but principally at Victoria Park, will fall under the remit of the contractor to rectify those at their cost. We are currently in discussions with the other contracted party that you refer to, and discussing with them the right way to deal with that, with the contractual provisions that we have at our disposal. That's a very kind of live situation. It's literally a few days ago we were having a discussion. Actually, one of my colleagues, which Zoe mentioned, is currently working on the more technical side of how that information should be presented to the contractor for their comment. We need to see that process through before we really can confirm unequivocally that they will rectify what we believe they need to at their cost. Sorry, I can't be more definitive, but it's very, as Zoe said, it's a very live situation.
And considering we're in public session, I totally understand that.
Okay,
so thank you for that. I guess in terms of timescales, when do you think we should be coming back for that confidential briefing and session to understand the gory details?
Okay, so I would like to think within the next week there will be an issuance of a contractual notice to the contractor. We need to give them the appropriate time to digest that information and come back with their thoughts and comments or their position. It's a little difficult to predict how well or unwell that will sit with them. Some of the commentary that will go to them will sting a little bit, and we need to we need to see that process through. So I would think within the next couple of weeks, we'll have a response from them, and then there's a chain of events that we will go through, and to predict how long that will take, it really is subject to their response.
And final question, in terms of the impact, all of this takes time, and obviously we would love to have both paddling pools back open for, well, as soon as it gets warm enough to use them. Is there a trade-off to be done here in terms of the thoroughness of that process kind of needing necessarily to come before all the remediation work is complete?
Okay, so if I answer that in two ways, two parts if I may. So St Nicholas paddling pool site is going to be subject to, in our kind of technical opinion, is going to be subject, or needs to be subject to, less intensive rectification works. There are some things to put right there, but on the whole, that site is generally in a reasonable condition, and I would suspect that pool could be, so the opening of that pool could be expedited in line with the time frame that Zoe has mentioned. Victoria Park potentially is going to be more, a bit more of an intrusive, brutal rectification works package, and until we actually know and we can confirm that the suggestions that we are making from a technical perspective are the right ones, we'll probably need to take some other professional advice from outside the existing project team, potentially speak to suppliers, subcontractors, very, very specialist designers in wet park play design sphere. So that could take a bit longer, and the May 26 timeframe could be a little bit ambitious.
Okay, sounds like we've got a nice juicy comms challenge. Yes. Good luck, Zoe. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor Kohler. Before I come to Councillor Knight, Zoe, I think this might be a question for you. So obviously we've got a little bit to run on this particular project. When we get to those key points, is that going to result in a cabinet report with recommendations to cabinet, or is that being dealt with differently? Well, I guess what I'm thinking about is how this committee may decide if those are going to cabinet, we wish to call them in to stay closer to it, or there might be other ways that members want to stay close.
Yeah, the intention was always to bring a detailed report so that you can do a thorough review to ONS, and probably September time, and then the appendices will be the reports that RPA have produced, so that all the information will be available to you then.
Okay, but in between, it feels like there'll be some decisions that need to be made around who's paying for what. Will those go as cabinet reports, or will those be dealt with by officers?
I'm not sure what the delegated authority is. I'd have to defer to Darren, but if there is additional budget, then if I need to do a report to request more money, then I will.
Yeah, I think if the project rectification and resolution, it goes to the plans RPF set out, then I don't think necessarily would need a cabinet report. If, for example, additional money is needed to support the rectification work, then likely to be a cabinet report will then be needed.
Okay.
As well. But I think we'll keep it on the ONS work plan, so it's not lost off the agenda.
Certainly, thank you. Councillor Knight, sorry, okay, come to you.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, do we have a mechanism now in place that something like this never happen again? And also, do we do lesson learn?
Yes, as laid out in the report, I do think there has been some lessons learned from this project, and that we need to introduce better governance, as David mentioned. In the report, it states that all of the senior managers, myself and David Anderson included, we had the CDM training, which was really, really helpful. RPA shared some documentation, governance documentation that we should be using. So all of those things will be used going forward, definitely for all projects within neighbourhood services, yes.
Great, thank you. Members, any other questions? Councillor Payne.
Thank you. It was a brief question, please, about the communications. Just looking at 1.8 and 2.10 in the report, 1.8 mentions the negative comments on social media which risk the reputation of the council, and it talks also about the local press interest at the time. And I can understand residents being frustrated, particularly when it's a facility they really need, if they have got young children and want to use those amenities. At 2.10, it talks about the communication strategy, and it says that's to keep both residents and visitors informed. So I was wondering, please, about the exact methods of communication that you're going to use. Are you intending to go back to the social media fora where those negative comments originally arose, and to go back to the press coverage where the comments arose originally, or is it going to be things like notice boards, for instance, or a mixture of the two? I was just wondering about how the strategy would work with the methods used.
Thank you. Yes, we will be working with our media team. It will probably be appropriate to do a press release. We've got various channels that we can put information out. It could be notice boards in the parks, but it will include the friends of groups of both of the parks where we've got the paddling pools. I'm not sure whether we would go back to the negative threads that were on social media, but we will certainly be making use of social media. There was one radio station in particular that was very interested. We would be going back to them as well. Any of the local papers that have been in touch with us, we want to put a positive spin on it. We want to get this right, and we are all eager to open it, but it's got to be right. So yeah, the comms, we're working with the media team now, and I dare say once the weather starts to improve, people will start asking, when's my paddling pool opening?
Right, thank you. Councillor Dre, come to you. I've got a question at the end.
I was just wondering why there was quite a delay in discussing with the remit that was discussed on 2.5 in September 2025, when the pool was shut down on July 2025, because there's quite a delay between July and September in consulting somebody about it, I think.
Victoria Park closed in August, and we had the first meeting with RPA quite early in September. There was a little bit of a gap, but I think, to be honest with you, that was probably down to annual leave, and it was also making sure that we commissioned the right consultant to come in and support us, and that obviously took time. We had pre-meetings with RPA to talk about the issues and what we could do to put them right, and then they were formally appointed in September.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Can I just come back to Councillor Knight's question on 5.1, sort of around, so it's really good to hear that actually we've invested a bit more in some project management training. How is that now manifesting itself in terms of doing something differently? Have you got something that you could, I guess, give members a reassurance that actually it's not just that we've been on a training, we're now doing something different as a result?
Yes, Dave Anderson might want to add something, but within Dave's team, we've identified the next big project that is going to be taking place in Dave's team is the St Nicholas Park play area. It's complete refurbish. That's a really big piece of work due to start in the autumn, is it, Dave?
Yeah, so Zoe's right, yeah, the next big project for us is the St Nick's play area, and yeah, the lessons learned from the paddling pools will then roll out onto that project. So it will be around governance, it will be around roles and responsibilities, and very clear on that, and realistic timescales as well. So yeah, my team are involved in these green space projects, and there will be further training, and yeah, we'll be taking on all the lessons learned.
Okay. Thank you. Great, thank you. Sure. Look forward to an excellent delivery of the Kenilworth Skate Park project when that comes forward. Any other questions from members? Councillor Davison.
Sorry, just can I add, and Darren Knight will be able to put more detail if you want it. as well as try. I think in a way, to be blunt about it, it's unfair to expect all senior officers to be expert project managers. So we are trying to strengthen, if you like, the core under Dave Elkington so that there are more processes in place. So it's been too much of a free-for-all and expecting everybody will just know what to do, and that isn't right. So, let's say, maybe Darren might want to say a bit more about that, but I think that's almost more important than expecting people like Zoe to pick things up.
Yeah, just pick up on the learning side of it. I think the major change would be structurally. So this is the centralising the council's capital project delivery team under the strategic director. That was the decision we made last year to progress that organisational change. And I think that'll be a really positive. That'll centralise the experience, the expertise within that team. The other change, and we can probably share with councils as well this week, will be the introduction of what we're going to call a PEP, a project execution plan. So RPA have helped us design that framework, and they've shared that with us. That's just having our logo stuck on it at the moment. But that document will form then the core basis of sort of capital project delivery moving forward. And that was a key part of the training we had a few weeks ago from David and his team. So I think it might be helpful for Josie if you could share a copy of that with the committee so they can see the standard of the change we'll be implementing from a governance perspective moving forward.
No, that's great, thank you. I think Councillor Davison, you made a really valid point. Actually, this isn't about turning all our managers into project managers. Project management is a skill and a profession in itself, and but it is important that we've got the right governance structure, framework, the process, so that actually when our senior managers have to incept projects or get involved in projects, we're all working to something that feels like it's got a little bit more robustness. Councillor Kohler, I will come back to you.
Just because we've entered into this topic, there was at a scrutiny meeting earlier this year, we're only in February, and we're already talking about earlier this year, but there we go. There was a vague promise of having a portfolio report detailing all the live projects, what kind of project management processes they're following, who's acting as project or program manager, etc. Is there any timeline of when that might come our way?
So we're currently updating the corporate project register at the moment, and that will contain the high-level information. In terms of more detail, I will check with David Elkington on the timeline for that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Kohler. Right, okay, members, thank you. I'm going to wrap that up. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, David. Thank you, Dave, for coming this evening. I think that was a really helpful session. We're noting the report, and we'll look forward to you coming back hopefully in September. But obviously, we'll look out for anything that comes through Cabinet in the meantime. But thank you very much for an informative session, and for I think. Probably David Reeves, I think it sounds like your input has been very, very valuable to us, so thank you very much. Right, okay, item 8, we are moving on. This is the communications update. I think, Graham, it says you're Chloe Wiltshire on my report, but I can tell that's not the case. Would you, so this report goes back a little way, back to July 2014, and then we had a further report in January 2025, and we basically asked for an annual summary of communications. So I don't know, Mr. Folkskinner, do you want to just give us a quick overview of the report, and then we'll see if members have got any questions.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Chloe would be here, but she's on annual leave, and I was party to producing the report as well, so as much as her name's on it, I'm more than happy to come and report. Yes, as you said, it's an annual commitment to report to ONS on our communications plan within biodiversity and climate. The report summarises the past year's communications. It's a summary of what we've been doing in the last year. Just to note, the report was written, we're calling ourselves Climate Change Team in this report. We're in the process of changing our team's name to in light of the emphasis we're going to low cost, low carbon. So
for as much as we're climate change team in here at the moment, we are very likely to be a different name come this time next year. So effectively this is a report of the summary of all what we've done over the previous year. It includes, there's a fair bit of biodiversity work there. There's the summary of the low cost, low carbon initiatives that we've been doing. One thing I picked up yesterday, because the Warm Homes Local Grant, we have routine meetings with the working group for that, and this is a good example of how communications work, is that the thermal imaging camera initiative that we've got, we have about half a dozen different community groups that hold these cameras. One resident borrowed one of these cameras from one of those groups, did some work on their own property, realised, I don't know the exact details, realised they needed work doing on their property, and then actively went and looked for a grant for Warm Homes went for work on the Warm Homes Local Grant. So it's quite a good synergy of communications there, which I only found out yesterday in the recent meeting we had. So the fact that we've got thermal imaging cameras out there is linked into our Warm Homes Local Grant applications. And so it summarises what we've been up to. And moving forward, we're going to be pretty busy, I think, from a communications point of view going forward. Going back to the Warm Homes Local Grant initiative that we're currently in, we want to communicate to case studies. We've got one that's just about to come forward, a property that's going to be retrofitted. What we would like is to use case studies on properties that have been retrofitted through the Warm Homes Local Grant, and we want to publicise that. So we want, in the next 6 months, we want to bring that on board. From my own point of view, we've got ongoing local consultation within the next 6 months, easily, about the Abbeyfield shared path. I had a meeting with the Friends of Group last week and kept them up to date. So we want to keep, it's my role, I want to keep local consultation going on the Abbeyfields. EV infrastructure is another something that's happening in the next 6 months, where we're currently going out, or more or less going out to tender for EV infrastructure within our community, within our public car parks, off-street public car parks. One of the things I want to do is consult. There is a disability champion within Stratford District, which I want to bring on board, because we want to ensure that any infrastructure we put in is accessible and meets the standards. So I think that would be really beneficial, that we can, through my experience, I know somebody within Stratford that is a champion for disabilities, and I want to bring them on board. We've got a lot of work to do around the low cost, low carbon agenda, and last time I was here at ONS, we were talking about the emissions and carbon insetting. There's going to be a lot of internal consultation going forward in the next 6 months. We also need to revise the communication strategy. The wording will be out of date, so we need to update the communication strategy. And last but not least, we are currently developing a website for our local community engagement work or initiative that we do with Stratford. We are using that website as a signpost for local communities to access information. We are going to put webinars on in the next year, and we're going to have a repeat of our annual event, which we had last October in this venue. So there's lots going on, and we meet on a monthly basis with media team. We have ongoing conversations with our media team. Yes, and that's about it. I'm more than happy to take questions from anybody, and suggestions would be really useful as well. Any suggestions you might have about communications would be fantastic.
Great. Thank you, Graham. And that was actually that was quite useful to get a forward-looking view as well. So thank you, that was really helpful. Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, and thank you, Graham, for that report. It's very interesting to see everything that's going on and to get the information about how it's being communicated. Couple of comments. One is on thermal imaging cameras. As Chair knows, I think Kenilworth Town Council, we had them for over 2 years probably, and been very successful. So there are Warwick District Councils now come on board with that, which is great, but they are very popular. The second thing is that you asked for suggestions of what other things might be highlighted. And I was thinking of the repair cafes, which are now well established, I think, in the towns, certainly in Kenilworth, and I think in Leamington and Warwick. And they're great community sources of community cohesion, bringing people together in order to repair things and be able to reuse them rather than recycling them. And I think that's probably a success story that leads towards the reduction of carbon and so on. So that's something that could be brought in. And the other thing is perhaps a question, it might be a bit too early to come to a conclusion now, but I note that Warwickshire County Council has decided to abolish their climate change team or significantly reduce that. How is that going to impact our work in this area?
Yes, I mean, starting off with the thermal imaging cameras, we contacted all the community groups only, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, just to see whether we can help sort of engage with them, because obviously we're going into the summer now, but what we wanted to do was say, well, we're more than happy to go out and visit these groups and try and get the enthusiasm going for it, but they're pretty successful. But I think we can always do more, and as a group, we're more than happy to go out there and champion the idea of thermal imaging, the use of thermal imaging cameras. Repair cafes, absolutely. I mean, the website we're creating for the local community engagement, we hope, because we are engaged, the LCE initiative engages with local action groups. What I would like to see this website doing is acting as because some action groups have got really active websites and distribution groups, and I don't want to repeat that, but equally, if we could use this website as an opportunity to publicise what those action groups do, including repair cafes. And I had a meeting yesterday with somebody, a research person that lives within Leamington, really keen on looking at the circular economy and fashion and fabric and textiles. Because when I think of repair cafes, I think of taking my toaster or my kettle to get repaired from an electrical point of view. But one of the things I wouldn't mind researching and seeing whether these repair cafes could do is, could we not take textiles in there, because people don't know how to sew buttons or zips and things like that. Could those repair cafes include, well, they may well do, but I need to look into it. Could they include could they include textile repair as part of that cafe? But
I think the Kenilworth Repair Cafe already does that.
I was going to do a bit of research on that, but if Kenilworth does that, can we use the other repair cafes? Could they take an example from that? What was your last question? Sorry, Councillor, what was the last bit of you?
It was the impact of the reduction in the team at Warwickshire County Council, which has now been set up, the climate change team, and what sort of impact that will have. So I don't know whether Councillor Williams may have thoughts.
Yes, funny enough, I was speaking, the first I knew about it was today when I was on an ABSI conference with a colleague from the County Council, and they explained what was happening to them. I don't know, because it's all new. I mean, my colleague Becky from a biodiversity, she liaises quite strongly with the biodiversity colleague within the County Council. I don't know enough to know whether or not that role is affected at the County Council. Certainly, the person I spoke to today their understanding was that they were going to, the team is sort of being dissolved, but their role would go into another team somehow, so they would continue the work, but within a different team or department. And whether or not that dilutes what they do, I'm not sure. I don't know. But at the moment, certainly from my point of view, I have strong links. I mean, I'm sort of the active travel side for me and the electric vehicle infrastructure side of it. I don't think that's effective because that may be a slightly different team to the Sustainable Futures team. But I've only knew today, so I'm not too sure. Sorry.
Councillor Williams.
Yeah, and just to add that for a while now, the previous Climate Emergency Partnership hasn't been meeting, but we have had recently notification of the intention to create a new sustainability partnership. And I think the partners of the former group are likely to be the partners of the latter group. So it's not all dead as such. It's sort of been dormant for a while, and it looks like it's reinvigorating to some extent.
Right, thank you. Councillor Luckhurst, then Councillor Kohler.
Thank you, Chair. I was having a look at the social media statistics. Obviously, X no more because we're off that one. I noticed, and I've had a conversation with Councillor Davidson about this one, there's no TikTok on there. I know TikTok's very much younger demographic, but as is happened with Facebook, sometimes as the demographic themselves age, they stay with the same platform. So that demographic may start to be interested in what the council's doing. So are there any plans to get onto TikTok? Because I've seen there's some good video content on Instagram from the council. So that's what that would suit TikTok well. From my limited knowledge of the platform, I'm not going to claim myself as an expert.
I don't know the answer to the question. I don't even know whether we have a presence on TikTok.
No, I just checked, and no, I don't. As for this council, no. We're on well, obviously I've just follow the Instagram quite closely and Facebook, but yeah, we're currently not on TikTok.
Well, what I can do, as I say, we have monthly comms meetings with media. I can ask the question. I don't know, but yes, why not? If we can use it, let's use it. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Luckhurst. If you want to follow the Lib Dem councillor on TikTok, you'll get some great content. Councillor Kohler.
Thank you. That was surprising. Thank you for the report. I think it's worth just pointing out your budget set aside for climate communications in 2026 is 1,500 quid. So we're doing quite a lot with not a lot, frankly. So that's to be commended. I've got one question. I've got a few questions, of course. There was some kind of warm homes grant scheme relatively recently that was targeting specific postcodes. So it listed a dozen postcodes within Warwick District where there were special criteria for them. I'm just wondering, did we do any comms to the residents in those postcodes? This was a grant targeted at home owners. So it was one of the conditions was relaxed in those postcodes, trying to target deprivation within the district. So obviously, as councillors, we don't know which properties are council houses or not, and which ones are privately owned, but maybe the council has more information. So was there any comms targeting the specific postcodes that were mentioned in that report?
I think you're referencing the Warm Homes Local Grant Scheme, and yes, we do. We're working with a company called Broad Oak, and we've done exactly that. So we've been working with GIS team. We've been working with the County Council. They also have a modelling software which we have access to. So what you're able to do is pull out EPC data. You're able to pull out areas of deprivation, and we have done postcard distributions. There's different methods we've used. We've door knocked. We've put postcards out, and what we're doing is targeting the properties that fit the criteria for the Warm Homes Local Grant.
Fabulous. Can't believe you can do that on 1,500 quid. That's amazing. Two other questions, if I may. Biodiversity net gain is obviously something that comes up and is something that the planning team have some responsibility for. Does our biodiversity team have any interaction with that planning biodiversity team?
Pretty sure they do. My colleague Becky Davis, I'm more than happy to find out and confirm it back to you, but I'm fairly sure she does, yes.
I'd be interested to know just what is going on and whether is more in that particular area that we could do to kind of try and help developers as they want to meet their biodiversity net gain target, try and do it in a way that we want them to do it as a council. Last question, you mentioned in terms of infrastructure, working with a disability group from Stratford District, and I just wanted to make the comment that I think there are other groups that make safe space for girls, for example. So when we're designing infrastructure that could be used late at night, I would encourage us not only to talk to disability groups, absolutely valid that we do that, but also to think about making safe space for girls.
Yeah, thank you. That's great advice. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm more than happy to engage with, because if we're putting these EV chargers in, we don't want them in the far corner with no lighting, and that's been a strong emphasis throughout. So we want them accessible, as in we want them to follow there needs to be a proportion of chargers that are going to be meeting the accessibility standards, but equally from a point of view of feeling safe and not vulnerable, absolutely. So if I can come back to you outside this, and if you know of any groups, I'll be more than happy to have them off you, please.
So I think, actually, Graham, Sally Watts from the Green Spaces team is very focused on safe spaces for girls as well, because she was talking to me when we were talking about the skate park. So I think that was the scheme she mentioned, so she'd be a good person to speak to. Any other questions? Councillor Payne.
Yes, thank you. I had a question a bit similar to Councillor Luckhurst's about the stats for the hits on social media for biodiversity in Table 3. I just wondered how that's being analysed by the officers. It says in the paragraph below it, below the table, that the data and insights from previous campaigns will be used to create content that informs and educates on the areas where the most commentary has been received, particularly around tree planting, flood mitigation, and habitat creation. So does that mean you've got, for instance, an AI algorithm that's going through the number of hits on particular videos and then working out what to use for further communication to residents, or are there officers looking at comments about flood mitigation, for instance, on particular videos or as a reaction to particular posts? I just wondered how the data's being analysed, because it's a good idea to feed the data back into new campaigns.
Yes, I mean, these statistics are given to us by the media team, and it's not as we're not so sophisticated as AI, but what we do is we talk at these monthly meetings around what's worked, what hasn't worked, how can we do things better, and these stats around comments and shares and what have you, we take that into account when we're looking at a future scheme and saying, well, did it work last time? So we're comparing. If we have done a similar campaign in the past, we're looking at this in previous campaigns and saying, look, can we do anything better? Yeah, so these are generated by media, and we take advice from them as to how best to put stuff out.
Great, thank you. So just one question from me, Graham, if I may, and it was touched on. So we talked about thermal imaging cameras earlier. Looking at 4.1, if I'm reading that correctly, it seems to suggest that actually we've only had 14 people actually borrow the thermal imaging camera, which seems like a very low number. But actually 8 of those have decided to have work completed as a result of using it, which actually is a really good hit rate. So I guess my obvious question is, how do we get that 14 up so that actually we can get more of the impact? Because that feels like it feels like there's something really valuable there.
Yeah, well, not me myself, Chloe was really struggling to get feedback off the groups. It was really hard work. So what I mentioned earlier about a couple of weeks ago, not that I've got any particular weight, but what I did, I followed up Chloe's emails and chased the group saying, look, we need your information here. And it wasn't necessarily me, but we got some really good feedback off them. Feedback response, they said, yeah, sorry, we haven't done it. We are still engaged. And that's when I said that we would, in any way we can help, we will do so. So if it needs going out there and talking to a community group, I know the Leamington Hub here, for example, we've got no problem going out there of an evening and talking to that group about how best to get stuff out of. So it's getting a momentum going and getting some case studies going. As I mentioned about that one that then went on to get some grant money from Warm Homes Local Grant. We can't rely purely on us asking for the information and the groups coming back. We need to push. We need to be a bit more proactive and get out there. And as a team, I'm more than happy to spend an evening, a couple of hours, going out there and talking to these groups. So that's one way of doing it.
Yeah, I guess I'm conscious we've made an investment there of public money in some cameras, and actually something's really working. And if we could just get more of that happening, that would be, I think that would be a really good thing. So, okay, I think with that I'm going to wrap up the conversation. Oh, right, okay, oh. A late entry from Councillor Knight. Go on.
Thank you, Chair. I'm still looking at the intake at only 14 and the social media. But I think if you promote the social media properly, you would have more intake. I think the team need to look at social media more and promote it more. And I don't think it's promoting properly. Thank you.
I mean, one option we have got is you can pay, you pay to get deeper. I don't fully understand it, but you can pay Facebook or whatever to get in deeper with it. I don't quite know how it works, but that is one option we could consider.
You can pay Facebook to boost and it's like tenner, and it could boost a lot more. So I think a lot of residents don't know about it. That's why we have a low intake. I think you need to look at that impact of it.
We've certainly used it in other examples where our media team has suggested we spend that money and boost the input, the output. But yes, we could consider it for here as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. I think that would be a great thing if we came back next year and saw actually the numbers gone up, and actually it sounds like you got some really nice case studies as well to tell that story. So just joined things up really nicely. Right, good. Thank you, Graham. That was a good report, good discussion again, members. That was really helpful. Right, I'm now going to move on. So item 9 is where I have to propose to exclude the public and press. I do have to do that despite the fact we have no public or press here because we are live streaming. So from the chair, I will propose to consider resolving that under section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, the public and press be excluded from the meeting for the following item for the reason of the likely disclosure of exempt information within the paragraph 3 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 following the Local Government Access to Information Variation Order 2006. I'm proposing that. Do I? Councillor Kohler? He was quicker. Sorry, Councillor Kennedy. All those in favour? Right, we're going to go into confidential session.